The time has come. We have reached game week. Week 0 is upon us. Farmageddon is taking place in Dublin this Saturday at noon. We are saving that preview for later this week, along with both of our college football playoff predictions and our preseason top 12 rankings. That's coming out later this week. Today, it's all about conference championship game predictions. This is mainly going to be an opinion-based episode who we think are going to make the respective Power 4 conference championship games for all of our other episodes, positional rankings, conference win totals, conference power rankings. Those contain a buttload of stats and analysis, so go check those out. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. Before we get started, as always, make sure you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. Make sure you're following us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And as always, we are brought to you by Frost Buddy, the best can cooler koozie on the market. It's a 10-in-1 koozie that keeps your drinks cold, man. Whether it's a traditional 12-ounce can, a slim seltzer can, Coke bottle, bottled water, glass bottle, you name it, man. They've got a ton of college football teams on there. I just happen to be rocking a brand new Indiana Frost Buddy here. Pretty sick for all you Indiana fans out there. I know we got a lot of Indiana subscribers, Indiana listeners. My wife got that for me for my birthday. It's pretty sick. Head over to frostbuddy.com/ATB. And when you check out, make sure you choose the 30% cash back option. You'll get an email after purchase, and they'll give you a sweet credit that you can use on a future Frost Buddy product. And they have what they're calling like these thick buddies. It's similar to a Stanley. My wife just got one. It's 50 ounces, and it has an insert that you can pop in like a Starbucks iced coffee in there too, and just carry it around. Like, it's pretty sick. Men, go to frostbuddy.com/ATB. Get your wife one of those, and they will love it. frostbuddy.com/ATB. All right, Lance, hit me with some news and notes from fall camp before we get into conference championship predictions.
Well, the news that broke this morning, but it was breaking in my group text, the group chat with the boys last night. Got a couple buddies that are actually old friends of mine that are pretty prominent boosters for Alabama. And the group text was blown up last night because Alabama starting running back Jam Miller broke his collarbone in the Alabama scrimmage yesterday afternoon. And it's terrible. For injuries are the worst, man. It's worst time of the year. Yes, worst part of the game. Don't care who you're a fan of or whatever. Nobody wants to see these guys get hurt, man.
He was having a killer camp.
Exactly. He was having a huge fall camp. Ryan Grubb, like immediately when he came back to Alabama to be the offensive coordinator, talked about that running back position in like spring, summer, and especially throughout fall camp. I mean, he was talking about that Jam Miller had completely separated himself and was by far running back 1, and then it was just a battle for who RB2 was going to be.
And dude was yoked.
Yes, he was. He's the pictures was very. If you follow college football, you've probably seen the pictures by now. But if you haven't, just literally type in Jam Miller on Twitter.
Go to our page. Yeah, we got a picture of it. I said he's doing his best Branson Robinson impression out there.
That's true. Good time to plug our X page. Follow us on X, and go to X and check it out. You'll see the picture of Jam Miller. It's pretty nuts one year to the next. But where he'll be missed, honestly, I think the most starting out. I mean, Alabama's very talented at the running back position, but his experience and the dude is a dog in the pass blocking game.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, last year there's a ton of tape out there of him just stepping up and taking on linebackers that are free blitzers and edge rushers that are coming off the edge, free blitzing. And Jam Miller is just stoning dudes in the backfield. Mm-hmm. It's next man up, and it's going to be a battle between former number 2 tailback in the country coming out of high school and Richard Young, and then a guy by the name of Daniel Hill, who Clint Lamb, who covers Alabama at a really high level, has been talking a lot about Daniel Hill because Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator, has been talking a lot about him. That is 2 guys that are going to be battling for that position. But Daniel Hill was a highly rated 4-star coming out of Meridian. The dude is like 6'1", 230 something, so and can move. I think those 2 guys will be splitting carries, and then they've got a guy by the name of Dre Washington that transferred in from Louisiana that's got a ton of experience, but obviously not at the P4 level.
He could be like a third down back, though, if he comes in handy with that experience pass blocking.
Exactly. And Jam Miller is, depending on, again, I'm not a doctor, and a lot of the people reporting this are not doctors, but it sounds like all reports are leading that Jam Miller will be back for the opener in the SEC, from the SEC, which of course is in Athens at
Hmm.
Georgia, because Alabama's I think got 3 or 4 games before that, and then they've got
Yep.
3 games, and they've got a bye week, and then they've got Georgia, so they're hoping that he's going to be back for that game September 27th in Athens. Uh, some other camp stuff, man. We got to talk about it. I mean, it's pretty much dominating the headlines. Our 2 quarterback battles going on at 2 of the most premier programs will start in South Bend. Everybody thought, and definitely including us, we've got videos on social media to prove it, that in this offseason, we thought it was going to be CJ Carr, that
Yeah.
CJ Carr was going to be QB1. Uh, People like Kirk Herbstreit and everybody else also was hyping up CJ Carr in the offseason. And once again, man, Brian Driscoll, our boy Brian Driscoll from Irish Breakdown that we had on this show to preview Notre Dame for this upcoming season, I made the comment on there. I said, yeah, this was like weeks ago. I said, I know everybody's going to say it's a quarterback battle, but I mean, we know it's going to be CJ Carr. And then Brian cut me off and said, oh, no, it's a battle. It's going to be a battle.
Hmm.
Kenny Minchie is going to, he believed, push him. He was right. Because right now, all the reports are coming out that it's might be Kenny Minchie that's just slightly ahead. We don't know, but all I can say is that is without a doubt a battle. What are your thoughts on that as our fellow Irishman here, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, we put out that stuff in February, right? Talking
Yeah.
about CJ Carr and gotten some, interesting comments on there. Steve Angeli transfers after the spring game. He kind of realizes I'm not gonna, compete in this battle with these two guys. And then yeah, I think our minds were changed that it was going to be a true battle when we had Brian Driscoll on.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, I still think it's going to be Carr, and I think everyone who has projected Carr at this point, you got to stick with your prediction, and that's who's going to win it. I think everyone's kind of just surprised though that it's taken this long to name a quarterback, which you know every coach operates differently. Like you can name a quarterback, a week ago, like Ryan Grubb did, but maybe Freeman's kind of still wanting to show them. But eventually, I mean, you're less than 2 weeks out from your first game. You got to name a guy, name a leader who's going to be leading that offense. And I know Freeman wants to get that done soon. So I would expect to hear something this week, honestly, on
Yep.
who's going to be, taking that first snap down in Miami Gardens.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And again, the other prominent program, obviously defending national champs.
Hey, real quick, look at the bottom of the screen and hit that subscribe button. If it's already hit, we appreciate you very much. If not, it doesn't cost you a thing, and we appreciate you as well. Thank you.
They have not named a starter yet. It's between Julian Sayin, former 5-star, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, coming out of high school, out of Carlsbad in California. He, of course, went to Alabama and ended up transferring when Saban stepped down and decided he was going to retire. During that 30-day time, he ended up transferring to Ohio State. And then is it Keenholz or Kindholz?
Keenholz.
Lincoln Keenholz
Yeah.
is the other one. And again, everybody just thought this offseason that it was going to be Julian Sayin, and it still very well may be. But according to Ryan Day, that this is a very tight battle still, and that there's a chance that this may carry on into the regular season. So again, don't know if that's the case or not yet, but as we sit here today recording this, it is very much so still a battle between Sayin and Keenos. I still, again, think that Sayin's going to win that job at this point. That's just my own opinion. And it's not based off a whole lot of knowledge other than the fact that I just think that's the guy I think that they really want to go with. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this seems to be nothing new for Ohio State the past couple of years. Like Kyle McCord and Devin Brown went to a battle, 2 years ago, and it was kind of came down to the wire with that first game. Last year, it seemed like Will Howard is like he transferred in. It was like, oh, is Will Howard not even going to win the job? Like he ended up winning the job. Obviously, they won the national championship. So this is kind of what we've come to know with Ryan Day. It's different than with Marcus Freeman because past 2 years they had Sam Hartman come in, they had Riley Leonard come in. Those guys were the starters from the spring. Like that was it. Like there wasn't any competition going on. He wanted some reputable guys that he could bring in and do that. So Ryan Day seems to be kind of like his MO is like I'm going to stretch these QB battles out as far as I can.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as overall, Cam, that's really the biggest news out there right now. I mean, we had Chris Doering on the other day. I had an awesome interview with Chris Doering, former Florida great wide receiver, ESPN, SEC network analyst. We talked about a couple of the guys that are like, there's multiple guys for Florida that are walking around in boots right now, but they actually, for the first time in a couple of years, the Gators don't open up with one of the, some top team in the P4 like last year. They opened up with Cam Ward in Miami. They got a couple of easier games before they really lean into the, be part of their schedule when they go to Baton Rouge to LSU. But they got a few guys that are walking around in boots. 5-star wide receiver Dallas Wilson's in a boot. Caleb Banks, who everybody knows is a big time defensive lineman for them, is in a boot. And I think Trey Wilson, receiver, was also in a boot here recently. But again, none of these are serious like injuries. They're just nagging type stuff. Of course, we know DJ Lagway was also in a boot not too long ago because of a calf strain, but he's now out of the boot and practicing and playing. So again, nothing serious, just a bunch of soft tissue injuries there at Florida that it doesn't seem to be, they're going to miss any like valuable time
I think the
for the
world's
season.
largest aircast manufacturer is in Gainesville, Florida.
It might be, man. It might be. Goodness gracious, it's unbelievable. Yeah, when I was interviewing Chris, I said, "Hey, man, I just hope by the time that like we're finished with this, that
Yeah.
there's not somebody else down in Gainesville walking around in a boot right now."
Yeah. All right, man. Let's get to some conference championship game predictions. We'll talk a little bit about overarching, storylines from each conference. It's just me and you, man. This has been a while since we've had just a solo episode with
Yep.
us and not have a guest on. So let's start off in the Big Ten. Overall storylines. Obviously, you've got Penn State coming back from their semifinal loss last year and then returning everyone. Kind of how Michigan did 2 years ago. Kind of how Ohio State did last year. Is it Penn State's time to, continue that three-peat, 3 years in a row for the Big Ten and get James Franklin over the hump with a lot of these big games and win the national championship? Of course, they're going to have to do that against the defending national champion, Ohio State Buckeyes, who are going to reload with talent. And Ryan Day, they got new coordinators. You've got Michigan, the storylines. I mean, we couldn't even hop on and do like a live reaction to the Michigan punishments that were handed down on Friday, which of course they're appealing, but storylines with Michigan. And I, honestly, man, like I'm ready to put the Michigan stuff in the rearview mirror. Of course, Michigan's not because they're appealing it, but
Yep.
you've got Oregon, right? They're defending Big Ten regular season champions, undefeated, number one seed going into last year's playoff. They're breaking in a new quarterback. You've got Indiana coming back. Like, will they be a one-hit wonder? Will Illinois, carry on the momentum from beating South Carolina in that bowl game last year? USC, will they bounce back, right? It's just storyline after storyline in the Big Ten, which obviously you come to realize, and come to know in one of the Power Two conferences like them in the SEC. So, what are your overall kind of things you're just looking for in the Big Ten this year?
I just think, man, that obviously it starts there at the top with, is it finally James Franklin and Penn State's time to get over that hump? Ohio State obviously losing everything that they lost. I'm interested to see, like, for me, it's not necessarily like the overall roster. I know that's what everybody's going to focus on. We've seen that in our social media posts. Anytime we post anything good about Ohio State, the rest of the fans outside of Ohio State, outside of Columbus, love just to point to all these players and all these starters that they lost. We get it. There's a ton of talent that went on to the NFL. But for me, it's the coordinators that they're replacing. They're replacing the best tandem of coordinators in all of college football last year. There's a reason why that Jim Knowles just became one of the highest paid assistants ever in college football. Chip Kelly getting paid $6 million to go be the offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, that's what they think of him in the NFL. Replacing those two guys is what's going to be the most interesting part for me. Now, I think they got two really good hires. Everybody, again, loves making fun of the whole Matt Patricia thing, and all everybody can point to is his failures as a head coach for the Detroit Lions. I got a news flash for anybody that thinks that. What he did as a head coach for, at the time, just booty Detroit Lions has absolutely jack shit to do with what he'll do as a defensive coordinator in college football. Those literally do not correlate to each other at all. So I think he's going to do a good job at Ohio State. Will he do as well as what Jim Knowles did? I know some Buckeye fans act like that Knowles wasn't that great, but that's the storylines for me for Ohio State. And I want to know, man, like, when is it that, as far as Oregon and Dan Lanning, he's still a young coach, okay? But we all put him up there now with some of the elite coaches and the elite coaches in college football. Last year, I just think he got a terrible draw because of that stupid bracket, the way they had it set up. And now they're going to straight seeding. Oregon wouldn't have drawn Ohio State right out of the gate in the Rose Bowl like they did last year if they went straight seeding. But can Oregon and Dan Lanning, can they get over that hump? They've honestly got an advantageous schedule. Again, I don't think they've got a brutal schedule at all. So Could they get over that hump and start competing for national championships? Because that's what Oregon fans want to see with what they're recruiting, and that's definitely what Phil Knight wants to see with all the money that they're pouring into that program. Uh, but Tyler, let's get into some dark horses because
Mhm.
the team that I wanted to discuss, what I was about to discuss, I said I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it.
Don't steal it from me.
My dark horse in the Big Ten is right now. I'm looking at DraftKings. They're plus 1,800
Oh, man.
to win the Big Ten, and which is fifth currently, Big Ten odds, and that is Lincoln Riley and USC. Now I know there's some of you right now that just gasped and just laughed and said that acting like Lincoln Riley's forgotten how to coach and he's soft and blah blah blah. Well, I just disagree with you. I think that Lincoln Riley has not forgotten how to coach. I think that he finally hit a home run with the defensive coordinator hire with DeAnton Lynn and going from being ranked in the 100s defensively in 2023 to cutting that over in half. And as far as the jump and the leap forward that they took last year in 2024, I think they're actually going to be able to win some games now defensively. Do I think the USC is going to be one of the best defensive teams in all of college football this year? I do not. Do I think they're going to be one of the best 3 or 4 defenses in the Big Ten this year? I do not. They don't have to be with Lincoln Riley's offense. And Lincoln Riley's offenses are always good. They're going to be good again this year. They've got one of the best wide receiver cores in all of college football, led by Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. And Lincoln Riley did not go dip into the transfer portal for a quarterback either. A lot of people were surprised about that. That tells me he likes what he's got in Jaden Mayava at the quarterback position. So, and when you look at USC schedule, when we're looking at this stuff and trying to project people to go to Big Ten championships or go to conference championships or playoffs, schedule matters. It just does. This isn't a power rating. And USC, when you look at their schedule, right now I've got USC going 9-3. When Tyler's going to be pulling up, the actual photos of what we've got in some of our standings. I've got USC going 9-3 on the year. But if they were to possibly win like a game, let's talk about like at Illinois, for example, or at Nebraska, games like that. Like those are games that USC can win. And if
Mhm.
they win games like that, that's a 10-2 football team. But yeah, USC at plus 1,800 is a team that I'm looking at as far as a dark horse. And again, when we're talking about dark horses, it really is like we're not going to be scared. We're going to throw out actual real dark horses, not somebody like Oregon outside of just Penn State and Ohio State. Oregon's not a dark horse. Okay,
Right.
USC would be a true dark horse.
All right, my dark horse. That's cute. You had a nice little 18-1 dark horse. My dark horse is 50-1 on DraftKings to win the Big Ten.
Are you going to swim in the fishbowl, Tyler?
I'm going to the PMW and I'm swimming in the fishbowl. Can't even get it out of my mouth. The Washington Huskies, a team that we have talked about a lot this year.
Yep.
We had them, I think. What was this? Did we have? We didn't even have them in the top 8 in the post spring Big Ten power rankings. I don't think, but we had Damon Williams. What was he, number 3
Yep.
as far as our Big Ten quarterbacks goes,
Yep.
right? Right now on kforwardratings.com, they've got 3 games that they are substantial underdogs in. Now, 2 of those come in Husky Stadium, and they are against Ohio State and Oregon. Right now, I think they're going to get one of those games. I toyed with them getting both because Husky Stadium is an underrated place to play. And if you've gone on our Instagram and checked out our ranking of the top 12 toughest places to play, I mean, it's hit or miss on. And I know all those people saying Husky Stadium shouldn't be on the list to live in the southeast of America, but it's a loud place. Just ask Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. The last couple times they've gone there hasn't gone well for them.
Dude, they lost. I don't know that they've lost at home in like the last 2 or 3 years.
I think
Even
they.
last
I mean,
year.
yeah, I look at the schedule last year, maybe, but I know they beat Michigan last year at home. So they go to Michigan on the road this year, week 8, and that's a game that's going to be tough for them to get. Their other road games are Washington State, Maryland, Wisconsin, and UCLA. The Maryland game will be tough because it is just like a cross country travel. And the stat last year with those teams crossing over 2 to 3 time zones, like, was not favorable for the
Bro,
teams that
let
were
me
on the
add
road.
let me add to that because I was looking at that today. It's also right after they play the Buckeyes.
Yep.
They get the
So
Buckeyes.
if you happen to beat the Buckeyes, right,
What a trap
you
spot.
can't follow it up with a loss to Maryland.
Yeah, the
Like, so
ultimate trap spot.
yeah. Um, but right now I've got them going 9-3 with splitting the Ohio State Oregon game. I think they could win both of those. They could go 10-2 and they could be 7-2 in the conference, and that will get them in the Big Ten championship game, talks and discussion. And just it depends on Damon Williams, man. Like, is he the real deal? Is he who we think he's going to be? Does Denzel Boston take the next step as a receiver? Does Jonah Coleman keep doing what he's doing? Omari Evans, I mean, those guys. So, does the defense step up? Replacing Steve Belichick, and I just think Ryan Walters coming over. I think that the defense is going to be solid, but Washington is my dark horse. As far as championship game matchups, we are both in lockstep here, man. I've got Ohio State versus Penn State in a rematch of that regular season game. You do as well. Who do you have winning in the regular season at Ohio Stadium?
I've got the Buckeyes beating him at home, man. I still think the Buckeyes get him in Columbus. I got to believe it to see it, man, that Penn State can beat Ohio State, period. But also in Columbus. What about you? Do you have Ohio State beating Penn State in Columbus?
I've got Ohio State beating Penn State in Columbus, and then I've got Penn State. They're gonna. I think they'll beat Oregon at home.
Agreed.
So
Whiteout
I guess
conditions.
yeah, you can count that as a big win for James Franklin. It'll be
Yep.
over a top 10 Oregon team most likely. Um, and nobody's going to fault him for going to Ohio State and losing in a game they're probably going to be underdogs at. Or
Oh, let me, dude. Let me rephrase that for you. They shouldn't fault him for that, but everybody will act like that is just the most catastrophic loss ever for Penn State. They'll never be able to beat Ohio State. They'll never. James Franklin will never win the big one. All that stuff
yeah,
will be out. And then in Indianapolis, it's in Indy, right?
hmm
And then in Indianapolis, right down the street from our Tom's Watts bar, where me and you and Ryan had some drinks last year before the Big
yeah,
Ten championship game. Who knows? We might be there again this coming up year. If you can come
yeah.
through on some tickets again. Uh, Penn State's going to take down Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game in a rematch.
I'm with you, man.
Yep.
I'm with you. I think Penn State gets it done, and that sets them up for a pretty good playoff run and a top seed there. So
Yep.
let's move on to the SEC. Gosh, where do we begin on storylines here, man? I mean, you've got Georgia coming back from an SEC championship game in a down year, an SEC championship in a down year last year. It's all Kirby did was nearly lose to Georgia Tech at home in 8 overtimes, but then go beat Texas twice and almost come back and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and ups and downs, roller coaster with the Georgia Bulldogs last year. Again, Texas coming back, reloading. Spoiler alert, I think they're going to be our number one team coming out later this week. They're the number one in the AP poll. They just have the most talent right now, I think, in the country. But they got to prove they can get it done against Georgia. They got to prove they got to go on the road to some tough environments this year, too. Alabama, obviously, Kalen DeBoer's year last year. Any other guy who's taken over in a job, not for the GOAT, and he wins 9 games his first year, that's a pretty solid year, right? But not for Bama fans. LSU, can they keep building on the momentum from Garrett Nussmeier and the offense, Blake Baker, second year of the defense. Those are kind of the top 4 teams right now. And then who's going to be that team that sneaks up there like a Texas A&M last year, like a South Carolina, right? Who's going to be that team that kind of wedges their way into that championship game prediction? Because as you know, these conferences aren't all equal. The schedules aren't all equal. So someone's going to benefit from scheduling or injuries or something like that, where they kind of just wedge their way in and they're like a win and in situation in the last week of the season.
Yeah, I think too, man, it's just the quarterback position in the Southeastern Conference is also just a huge storyline because you're breaking in new quarterbacks at some of the most premier programs in the Southeastern Conference. And I know some of these guys have been obviously there, like obviously Arch Manning's been there for multiple years, But what is Arch Manning going to do for Texas? Can he live up to it? Can Gunnar Stockton be the type of quarterback that Georgia and Kirby Smart and that Mike Bobo offense that they want to run that system for them? Ty Simpson's been waiting his turn for years in Tuscaloosa and is getting the nod. Former 5-star, can he step up and be the man there in Tuscaloosa that they need him to be? Just be the point guard, be the game manager to let that defense and all the playmakers that's going to be around him work. And of course, then you've got like guys like DJ Lagway, who started as a freshman last year, did what he did. Nussmeyer's the elder statesman. Again, he's only been a 1-year starter, but he's been around for a while. Lenore Sellers, he could put a team on his back and carry him a long way. Just the quarterback position in general, and also to the got to mention the star transfer in Johnny Mateer. It's so intriguing, man, because if his game, everybody's wondering, like, will his game transfer from Washington State to Oklahoma? Will that transfer like to the SEC and against the tough schedule they're going to play against? If it does, those good as Oklahoma's defense is going to be, and Jaden Knott, some of those pieces they're going to have around him on offense, bringing in OC Ben Arbuckle, that Oklahoma team's as dangerous as can be, man. These are some of the teams we're talking about that could be dark horses. So that leads me in. Who is a team that you believe is a dark horse? We'll start with you this time, Tyler. We're going to give you first crack at it. Who right now do you think is a dark horse that you wouldn't mind sprinkling a little cash on for possibility of competing for an SEC championship?
Well, I was almost crazy enough to go with Texas A&M. I can't quite get there with their road schedule. Their road games are tough, man. At Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, at Texas, obviously in the non-conference against Notre Dame. And they were 15-1. So I was like, I need a bigger shot. So I'm going to take a team that's 16-1, and I'm going to go Ole Miss. That's a team. I don't know. I don't know if they're a dark horse or not, but I feel like they're kind of being overlooked.
Yeah, they're dark.
And
yeah, absolutely, they're a dark horse.
Yeah, and as you can see in my SEC predictions, I've got them finishing 5th in a cluster of teams that are 9-3, but 5-3 in the conference. A lot of unknowns, Lane Kiffin has just absolutely transcended the program there to where, like, if they go 9-3, like that might be considered a down year, to some at Ole Miss. But the way he's lifted that program, I think if Austin Simmons turns out to be the real deal, dude, and like I think we put him 6th or 8th on our power rankings for our quarterbacks. If he is top 4 in the SEC, and if this defensive line pans out with a lot of homegrown talent on the defensive line, and if they can reload in the secondary, right? They lost a lot of guys in the secondary. If they can reload, they can be dangerous because they get very, very favorable schedule to begin the year. They don't play anybody really out of conference. That's kind of what it's funny when Lane talks about the Big Ten doing their conference stuff. It's like, buddy, you shouldn't be talking. You're not the one to be talking about that, scheduling nobody in the non-conference. At Kentucky, again, they lost to Kentucky last year. They should be focused for that one in week 2 this year. They get LSU at home in week 5. They get a bye week. They get Washington State. And then they've got 2 back-to-back road games. At Georgia is going to be tough. But, like, again, at Oklahoma, right? We're all banking on John Mateer and that offense and that defense to be revamped and Oklahoma to take, the next step and improve on, the debacle that was last year. But if they don't, can Ole Miss go to Oklahoma and win that game? Sure. And then after that, you've got South Carolina, Citadel, and Florida all at home before you get a bye week, and then at Mississippi State. That's the 13th easiest schedule, or the 13th toughest schedule. So the 4th easiest schedule in the conference. And if Austin Simmons, like I said, man, if he's a dynamic playmaker and, he just slides right in there as the next great, Lane Kiffin quarterback, they can make some noise.
I don't disagree with you, man. I think that Ole Miss's offense is. I don't have any questions about their offense. I think Austin Simmons is going to be legit. Lane Kiffin's offense are always really good. He's at a top 5 offense every year he's been in, top 5 offense in the SEC every year he's been there. Defensively, if Pete Golding can keep that defense rolling, and they don't have to be as dominant as they were last year, but they can't just take a giant step back. That's where my worry is right now, is what is that defense going to look like without all the studs that they had last year? Man, I'm going to do it, dude. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take. I know everybody makes the 8-4 jokes about Texas A&M, but I'm looking at Texas A&M at plus 1,500, and I just think that Mike Elko. I believe in him and his ability as far as building that culture there at Texas A&M. Everything that you hear from all of the people that cover Texas A&M at a really high level talks about just how he flipped that culture upside down. Year one is establishing a culture. Year two is building off that and starting to build into what you're going to be there. And everywhere he's been as a defensive coordinator and then as a head coach at Duke, the improvements from year one to year two were pretty drastic. I expect that again. I love what they've done on offense, bringing in the pieces that they brought in, and Mario Craver from Mississippi State, KC Concepcion from NC State. They've got one of the best offensive lines, top 5 offensive line in the entire country. They're about 7 deep there. They've returned every single starter on their offensive line. It's year 2 for Marcel Reed. He knows he's the man now in this Colin Klein offense. Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels and Reuben Owens and E.J. Smith, that 4-headed monster at tailback. I think they're going to run the football, be physical on offense, get the rock in the hands of those absolute burners and playmakers. And Mike Elko said at the end of that year last year that, basically paraphrasing, that if it's the last thing he does, he will make sure that defense doesn't look as cheeks as they did at the end of last year. And when I look at their schedule, like right now, I've got A&M going 9-3 on the year. As we sit here today, I have them losing. And dude, I think that game in South Bend is going to be a freaking, one of my favorite words to use here, war. And it's going to be a war. And at LSU and at Texas. Right now, that's the 3 games that I've got A&M losing. And I mean, if they've only got 2 losses in conference, it could very well come into play, just like, a lot of these super conferences where you have tiebreakers and stuff like that, what ends up happening. But do I think that A&M right now, as we sit here today, just there's no way they can play with LSU. There's no way they can play with Texas, and there's no way they can play with Notre Dame. I do not believe that at all. I do think they can play with all 3 of those teams. So, yeah, I like taking a shot at Texas A&M at plus 1,500 because if you can just get to the SEC championship game or any of these conference championship games, anything can happen in a 1-game winner-take-all scenario.
Yep. Championship game, I have Alabama versus Texas, both finishing 10-2 and 6-2 in the conference. I think Texas is just too talented enough to get back there. I think they're going to drop one in Athens. I think Georgia's just going to continue to be their bugaboo, and it's just going to continue to be the thorn in their side until Sark can just prove he can go in and beat Texas or beat Georgia. But with the way the SEC schedules are, we may not see them play Georgia for the next 4 years. I don't know. So who knows? Alabama, I think that Kalen DeBoer is just too good of a coach, man. And we talked about it all off season, and Ryan Grubb coming back home into Kalen DeBoer's arms in Tuscaloosa. And like you said, man, he's got his Robin to his Batman. And I just think we talked about it, man. Like I'm super high on Alabama. I'm super high on Ty Simpson. I'm not worried about Jam Miller missing, the first month of the season, first month and a half of the season. Like you said, it's Alabama. They've got studs at running back to replace him. Obviously, the leadership factor, he's probably a pretty big leader on that offense. But I just think Ty Simpson, we didn't have him in our top 8, post-spring quarterback rankings. And he's a guy that's just steadily climbed. And he's basically, you want to talk about, it's going to be fascinating if both these teams match up. Because you're going to be talking about Arch Manning versus Ty Simpson. And depending on how the years they have, it's going to be Manning. He's going to be talked about, can Arch Manning win the SEC, right? When you're going into the season, in my mind, these are the same guys. If their names were flipped, they would be the same guys. They're both former 5-star quarterbacks who have been in the system for multiple years, who've waited their turn. And, one guy's getting more pub because his last name's Manning. Like, it is what it is. It's not Arch's fault. It's not Ty Simpson's fault. I think just Ty Simpson, though, like he's going to have a point to prove this season. And I think that Alabama gets to the SEC championship game against Texas. And I'm taking the Tide to win the SEC. And that'll make it, I think, 11 out of the last 12 or 12 out of the last 13 years that either Georgia or Alabama will have won the SEC championship game. So much for parity in that conference. It's that whole, Alabama's holding everybody on their shoulders, right? Like everybody else, and like Kentucky's like, yeah, we won it again. Yeah, so
You love talking about that, man. If anybody wants to know what he's talking about, he's referring to when Tyler and I first became really good friends about 3 or 4 years ago. He said it drives him crazy when the SEC fans would chant, like when Kentucky or Mississippi State or somebody, sorry, you're catching
yeah,
strays there, will chant
yeah.
SEC, SEC. Yeah, it's funny. But man, I've got as the more things change, the more things will stay the same. Last year, Texas came in and made the SEC championship game right out of the gate. Obviously, with the way that they're recruiting, it won't shock me if Texas makes it back again this year or the following year, whatever. But I do not believe that's the case this year. I believe that it is Alabama versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. I've got both Bama and Georgia going 11-1 this year in the regular season. Uh, yep.
Who are
And
those losses to?
who are the losses to? I think that Alabama will lose when they go to Georgia in Athens. And
Yeah, I don't. I think Alabama's going to march in there and make sure they know that
just
Daddy Bama is here and Kirby's our little boy again.
they're just gonna steal their lunch money in Athens again.
Yeah,
Man, if
yeah,
that happens, I
locker.
don't know what Georgia fans, I don't know what they'll do, if that happens. And I've got Georgia going into there's always that one game every year at least where the Black Voodoo Magic takes place in Jordan Hare
Yeah.
Stadium. And I think Auburn gets Georgia at Jordan Hare, and that's Georgia's only loss in the regular. So I agree with you that I think Georgia gets Texas and Athens. But I've got Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game, and I've got Alabama beating Georgia in a rematch from the regular season and Bama taking Georgia down in the SEC championship game in Atlanta, and Alabama as SEC champions.
All right, let's get to the ACC. We just talked about the ACC conference with Max Brown, man. And it was a really good episode. Go check that out. He gave a lot of insight into a lot of teams in the ACC, a lot of win totals we gave out. Clemson looking to obviously stay on top of the conference, but get back into that national championship conversation. You got Miami replacing the number one overall pick with Cam Ward. Shannon Dawson seems pretty adamant and pretty confident that they could have back-to-back number one picks. Like he thinks, and I know all coaches are confident that they are the coach to turn this guy around. And I'm not saying Carson Beck needs to be turned around, but he thinks he's the coach to get the most out of Carson Beck. So he's saying, they could have back-to-back number one picks. You got, SMU. Are they a flash in the pan, similar to Indiana? Like, can they prove that they have staying power, not only in the ACC, but in the Power Four conference? Because you're talking about a team that literally last year was their first year in like Power Four competition. So they were obviously gifted a pretty good schedule last year, and this year it's not as nice. But it's a what's the word I'm saying? The conference is fourth out of the Power Four. I think anyone can see that. ACC fans, man, like they are passionate though. I put out my ACC predictions, and boy, I got the most comments from a lot of people who either said great list, but man, I was a clown show, it was a trash list, didn't know ball, need to make this stuff more expensive. It's
I
just
saw one guy say Tyler doesn't know he ball.
yeah. There you go.
I almost commented back. I was going to be like, bro, just respect there on the play on words.
Yeah, there's too many storylines to keep up with this conference.
It is, man. And like, obviously, Bill Belichick in North Carolina is a huge one. I mean, the greatest coach in the history of the NFL coming to coach college football. The quarterback position in general, like Max Brown talked about on our ACC episode. We even talked about that, dude, when we were doing, like ranking different things in different conferences. We were talking about how the quarterback position in the ACC was sneaky good this year. And I mean, they're one of the most, I guess, polarizing teams or one of your bigger brands in college football. Again, there's going to be a 30 for 30 or a Netflix series someday on Florida State going from what they did in 2023, going undefeated in the regular season, and then only winning, was it 2 games last year? Yeah, 2-10 last year.
2-10.
Yeah, from like going from that, that's crazy. Like Mike Norvell is a much better coach than that. And Hey, man, I swear I'm not trying to do this, but it just lead me right into it. Let's go. Let's jump right into the dark horses. That's going to be my
Okay.
dark horse. Florida State at plus 20. This is my longest shot of any conference here at plus 2,800 on DraftKings is Florida
Okay.
State. And again, this is dark horses and long shots. It's a dark horse and a long shot for a reason. But when you look at Florida State's schedule, I mean, Tyler, let me ask you, do you think that is just absolutely no chance that Florida State can't beat Miami in Tallahassee?
That's one of the losses I have for Miami.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if that were to happen, like if you look at Florida State's conference schedule, obviously they play Florida out of conference, they play Alabama out of conference. But if Florida State were to beat Miami in Tallahassee, I mean, it is possible for Florida State when you look at their schedule, it's not even like crazy to say that they can't be sitting there with just like one loss in ACC play and could be playing for an ACC championship if they were to win that game.
Yeah.
So I've got Florida State as a dark horse possibility. I mean, I love Louisville and Jeff Brom and this Louisville team this year. I've made that very apparent on here. But Louisville at plus 850, I just don't think that's really necessarily they're tied for the third best odds to win the ACC. I personally don't think that's a long shot dark horse. So yeah, I'm going with Florida State at plus 2,800.
My dark horse is probably endorsed by Max Brown himself. I'm going with the 45-1 Pitt Panthers. And as you see here on my ACC predictions list, I do have them finishing sixth and 7-5, 5-3 in the conference. They've got a couple out of conference games that I think are going to be tough. One is against Notre Dame. Even though it's at home, it's going to be a tough one to get. And they got to go to West Virginia and Morgantown in the backyard brawl. Like, they're favored to win that game right now, but that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Like, it's just tough to go into Morgantown, a rivalry game, to win that. They get Louisville at home. They get Miami at home in the last week of the season, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And Miami, depending on what their season's like at that time, like they could just be like ready, like, get me out of here. I don't want to go up to Pittsburgh
Dude,
to play November 30th.
and that's
game.
their seventh straight game, and they're going to be on back-to-back cold weather games. Miami goes to Blacksburg the week prior to that at the end of November. Then they go to Pitt. If you're right, if Pitt is a dark horse, dude, that game itself, that game right there, could very well. You saw last year, Miami went on the road to Syracuse late in the season and got upset. Miami goes on the road to Pitt. If Pitt is sitting there, they're either going to be playing spoiler role, or if they are a dark horse, like you're saying, they might be sitting there with a chance to compete to get into the ACC championship game in that game.
Yeah. Other road games are at Florida State, at Syracuse, at Stanford, and at Georgia Tech. Those are all projected to be one-score games right now. They're underdogs in three of them and favorites in one of them. They get, like I said, Louisville at home. They get Boston College at home, NC State. So I just think that I like Eli Holstein and their offense. I mean, we're forgetting about Pitt. They started 7-0 last year, right before injuries kind of bit them. And Narduzzi is a seasoned coach. Like I said, they've got a good defense and a good home field advantage there, especially when you get those warm weather teams coming up north to play cold weather games in November. So yeah, if it comes down to that last couple of weeks, at Georgia Tech will be tough, but that Miami game should be interesting after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I didn't touch on my dark horses like schedule. I need to do that really quick. I've got Florida State right now going 8-4 on the season.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've got them losing to Florida and Alabama in the non-conference, and I've currently got them. I've got them losing to Miami, and I've got them losing at Clemson. But if they were to get that Miami game, they're going to be sitting there in the thick of it, in the thick of the ACC championship race, which would be just crazy after going 2-10 last year. But I love what Florida State brought in at the coordinators with Gus Malzahn and Tony White at DC. I do think they got the right quarterback that fits Malzahn's system. And Florida State still got talent, man. They've still got talent. And Mike Norvell did not forget how to coach. So, yeah. Who do you got as your ACC championship game picks, brother?
I've got Clemson making it to the ACC championship game, but I've got them coming in as the second place team.
That was, by the way, when you posted your list, I knew as soon as we posted that, all the Clemson fans were going to come out of the woodworks on that one. Yeah, they did not like the fact that you got, like I said, yeah, I know you like we're looking at the screen right now. What do you got? Clemson at 9-3.
Clemson at 9-3, 6-2 in the conference. I think they're going to win. I've already bet them to win that first week game against LSU. I just think you looking at their schedule, they go to Georgia Tech week 3. Georgia Tech is a team I'm high on. I think the Clemson's going to be favored, but we saw Miami favored to go to Georgia Tech last year. That's going to be a tough one for Clemson to get. And then they go to Louisville on a Friday night in November, the week after they play Florida State at home. And if Florida State has a bounce back season and they get that game, traveling to Louisville 6 days later on a night that Louisville will absolutely be rocking, that'll be tough. So the team I have winning the regular season crown in the ACC is the aforementioned Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I got them going 10-2, and I got them going 7-1 in the conference. They had like the 8th toughest schedule in the nation last year. A little easier this year. They don't play Notre Dame out of conference. It's 32nd in the nation, 7th toughest in the conference. I've got them dropping a game at Duke. That's the only game I have them dropping in the ACC. I got them beating Clemson. Like I said, week 3. I got them winning on the road at NC State and at Boston College. Other than that, I mean, at Wake Forest, they can get that. Like I said, Pitt, the weekend before Thanksgiving, that'll be tough. Virginia Tech, Syracuse at home, like those don't scare me at all. I mean, again, Georgia, that's out of conference, so I don't care what happens there when we're talking about ACC predictions. So I've got Georgia Tech versus Clemson, but I've got Clemson claiming their rightful place on top of the ACC, getting that revenge in Charlotte the first weekend in December. They're going to get Georgia Tech in Charlotte in that ACC championship game, but that leads me into maybe a little teaser for next episode, CFP predictions. What do we do, right? Georgia Tech 10-2, ACC, regular season champions. Do they get a spot in our bracket here? We'll see.
Well, I know some people think that might be crazy to pick the Georgia Tech win 10 games, but you just went through the schedule, man. They can win 10 games.
Yeah.
I have Georgia Tech going 9-3 on the year. For my ACC championship game matchup, I've got Clemson at 10-2 and 7-1 in the conference as your ACC regular season champs, tied the same record of 7-1 with Miami. I've got Miami going 9-3 in the regular season and going 7-1 in conference play. This is a hill, man, that I guess I'm going to have to die on, and I'm willing to die on it. I might be one of the only people out there that's willing to die on it that's not in Coral Gables or not a fan of the Miami Hurricanes. And that is that I still think that Carson Beck is a solid quarterback. Do I think he's the best quarterback in the country? No. But do I think he is a good quarterback and a really good college quarterback and has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC? I absolutely do believe that. I do believe Shannon Dawson can bring it out of him. I do believe that offensive line that's one of the best in the country at Miami is going to be able to protect Beck. He's going to have a really good running game to lean on there with Lyle and Fletcher there at Miami. And I think that Corey Heatherman was one of the best hires in the country in the offseason. I think you're going to see, just like you saw last year with DeAntlin at USC, that defense did improve. You saw Blake Baker at LSU from year over year. They went from one of the worst defenses in the country to where they were just average, which obviously helps a ton when you've got one of the better offenses in the country and one of the better offenses in your conference, which I do believe Miami will have this year. And I think Miami goes 7-1 in ACC play, gets to the ACC championship game in Charlotte and plays against Clemson. That will be Miami's 8th straight week playing, 3rd straight week playing in a cold weather game. And I just don't think that, I think that just wears and tears on them and it's too much. And I think Clemson is too good. And I think Clemson wins their 9th ACC championship game out of the last 11 years. So I have Clemson beating Miami in the ACC championship.
Are you writing out all these in chalk?
I am. Hey, it's not about trying to be the cutest or anything like that, man. It's about being right.
Well, you know what? If there's ever a conference that chalk will not fly, it's going to be the Big
That's
12 conference. As we saw last year.
That's what we call a transition, folks.
Yeah. BYU, Arizona State coming out of the woodwork. Iowa State. I mean, yeah, just chaos everywhere. Utah and Kansas State falling, Oklahoma State falling. Like, it was just a roller coaster of a conference. And I think really we think we know kind of what the top half of the teams look like, and maybe a couple of teams that could sneak up, but that's just the overarching theme with this conference, man. It's just like you got to watch every week. It's like a soap opera almost. Like you don't know what's coming on. It's like you're watching Grey's Anatomy every Thursday night. And you're like, what's going to happen? Who's going to hook up with who? Who's going to die this week? What place the hospital is going to blow up? Like that's what the Big 12 is like. It's like season 21 of Grey's Anatomy.
I love that analogy, by the way. We got to clip that one out. We got to clip that one out and probably post it to the socials. I mean, storylines, man. I mean, I don't really think we need to go just heavily into it, but just some kind of underrated ones like Rich Rod being back in Morgantown with West Virginia. You've obviously got Scott Frost being back in Orlando at UCF. I'll look at quarterback position in the Big 12. We just talked about some of these other conferences where you've got guys that are first year starters at the program that they're going to be starting at this year. The Big 12's got a bunch of guys that are proven production in college football. Maybe they're not going to be your highest level like NFL draft picks, but the quarterbacks in the Big 12 going into this year have the most proven production of any other conference in college football. It's the deepest going into the season. So right now, I'm going to give you first crack at a dark horse. Who you got?
I've got two. I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I don't want to take either one of yours, but the conference is so deep. We'll see. I've got, so if you're looking at my Big 12 predictions here, the team that I have in third, Kansas, is the team that everyone was like, are you kidding me? Kansas with 9 wins. But like, Lance Leipold, Jalen Daniels, they could really work some magic out of their hat. You look at their schedule, man, it is the easiest in the conference by far. They don't play Arizona State. They don't play Baylor. They don't play BYU. They don't play TCU. They don't play Houston. They don't play Colorado. And they get Iowa State and Texas Tech on the road. So it's kind of like the old adage of like, yeah, you might as well get those games on the road because if you had those games at home, they'd be tougher games. Kansas State is their toughest game at home in conference, which, they're going to beat Kansas State eventually, right? I mean, they're not going to just keep losing to them forever, right? I mean,
maybe they do it in Jalen Daniels last year.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And then another team that I think everyone is just looking over because they lost their quarterback a couple months ago, and that's BYU. And now they got a quarterback who's a true freshman, Bear Bachmeier.
What a name.
And the guy wears number 47. Like, and Kalani Sitake, like, I can't remember where we had him in like our Big 12 head coach rankings. Like, he is up there, dude. Like, he's a solid quarterback. Just what they did last year with a guy, no name. Nobody knew who Jake Ratzlaff was last year, right before the season started. He comes out, he plays okay. It was really that defense and then that seniority every year that BYU is always going to have with the guys that go on mission. And they come back and they're 25, 26 playing in college football. Of course, that's everybody now. I mean, how old is Diego Pavia? Like 37? Like, so, we just got BYU there, the third easiest schedule in the conference. They're only underdogs to Iowa State and Texas Tech. Again, with the new guy at quarterback, even though he might be exciting, no one's seen any film on him. I just don't know if that's going to translate into wins. I've got them 7-5, but again, they're only underdogs in 2 games. So you kind of just do favorite underdog there. You win all the games you're favored in. That's 10 wins right there. So I don't know. There's a couple teams I'm looking at as dark horses there. And again, Kansas was 18-1, BYU's 20-1.
Well, you did take one of mine. I'm going to piggyback off of you. Kansas at 18-1. For the reasons you said, the schedule that they've got, that beautiful new stadium. They get some of their toughest games at home. Obviously, they go to Texas Tech in conference play. They go to Ames to Jack Trice Stadium in mid-November, but they get a bye week before that game, before they go to Jack Trice against Iowa State. But if they could somehow hold serve in Lawrence at that beautiful new stadium, like you said, is this the year they finally get Kansas State? As we sit here today, do I think it's impossible for Kansas to beat Kansas State at home this year? Absolutely not. The impossible is the possible in the Big 12 in this conference. It just flat out is. Dude, I got to bring this up. I almost just said this just kind of be funny, but also would it really be that shocking after what we saw last year with Arizona State predicted to finish last in the conference, ended up winning the dang thing? I'm looking at these DraftKings odds to win the Big 12. Tied for dead last is the guy that you and I talk about every year that
Mhm.
when people doubt him, when people act like his team is going to be booty, he just sits there with a smile on his face and grows out a mullet and comes out and just wins, baby, win. Oklahoma State at plus 5,500. If I'm in the Big 12 this year, I was looking at their schedule, the Oklahoma State gets some games this year in Stillwater where they're catching some teams at home. They get Baylor at home. That could be interesting. They get Kansas State at home. They get Iowa State at home. Uh, I'm just saying, man.
Dude, you know what's crazy is that the other 3 power conferences, Mississippi State, Purdue, Stanford, they're all 500 to
Yeah,
1 to win their conference. Then the last place team. The last place team in the Big 12 is, like you said, only 55 to 1.
yeah.
Like, that's how close packed together they
Yep.
are.
And again, I don't think anybody would be other than the people. I'm gonna call it the casuals. When the casuals just look at someone's record from the previous year and think that that correlates to the next year, which obviously means nothing in today's college football and the transfer portal era. It would not shock me at all, man. We look up and there's Oak State, Mike Gundy in November, catching teams coming to Stillwater with a chance to sneak their way into the Big 12 championship. But like, I'm not on record saying that they're my dark horse team. That's Kansas for me. In the Big 12 championship game, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, man. I've been saying all off season that I think these two teams are going to be the class of the Big 12 this year. And I've got Texas Tech and Utah in a rematch from the regular season matching up against each other in the Big 12 championship game. Texas Tech is the most talented team in the Big 12. Does that mean they're the best team? Not necessarily. I do believe it is that it does mean that they are the best team in the Big 12. I do think that where they've beefed up on both sides of the dang line of scrimmage, and they did it in a huge way in the transfer portal, I think that pays dividends for Texas Tech this year. And Utah is going to go back to doing what they do best, which is line up and just try to bloody your nose on offense with one of the best offensive lines in the country. Morgan Scalley's defense is going to do the same thing they do every single year, which is be one of the best defenses in the country and one of the best defenses in the Big 12. I think those two teams match up. I think the line of scrimmage play from both of those teams are going to be the best in the Big 12 this year. They're going to play in the Big 12 championship game. And man, I've got guns up and Texas Tech, money where my mouth is. The Red Raiders are going to the college football playoffs as the Red Raiders and Texas Tech are the Big 12 champs.
Okay. I mean, I don't know why we're even wasting our breath on these predictions. It's going to be like Houston versus Arizona in the Big 12 championship game. So I'm going to go with this is the first conference we've got completely. Like, we don't have even the same one team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with Baylor and Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona State, obviously, coming back from last year, and they losing Cam Scatterbo, but getting Kanye Udo. Kenny Dillingham is really trying to change the culture. I think he is succeeding in that. Sam Levitt, one of our favorite quarterbacks, top 5, top 10 quarterback in the country. They have a road game at Baylor, which I think they are going to drop in week 4. The Utah game is going to be tough. I think they're gonna find a way to win one of these games at Utah, at Iowa State. I got them going 10-2. I got them going 7-2 in the conference. But again, I've got Baylor going 8-1 in conference. I think they're going to find a way, probably to split that Auburn and SMU games at the beginning of the season. That's a tough 2-game stretch right there. And then the only game that are underdogs in is the game I have them losing at TCU. Every other game they are favored in because they have the second easiest schedule in the Big 12. They've got Sawyer Robertson. They've got Bryson Washington. I know Pendergrass got hurt. I think they got some running back depth there. They've got guys on the outside. I think their defense will be improved under Dave Aranda. And I've actually got a new champion in the Big 12. I got Baylor winning the Big 12. I didn't know where I was going when I started these predictions, and I came out with Baylor on top. Baylor punches their ticket to the college football playoff. Where they will be seated, you'll have to tune in and find out on Thursday when we do our college football playoff predictions. We'll talk about our preseason top 12 rankings. and much, much more. Once again, thank you guys for subscribing, commenting, liking, all that stuff on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Football season's right around the corner. If you're just getting back into it, man, we appreciate you listening. Where have you been all off season? We're here year round, man. We love hearing from you guys. Share this podcast, share the show with your friends. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on TikTok. Just go find us, man. We love to converse. We love to banter back and forth. You can call us stupid, man. We got thick skin. It's fine. Plenty of people have called us stupid recently. That's fine. So we appreciate you guys listening. For Lance Barton, I'm Tyler Noe. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.